Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Definitely Talking podcast. My name is Shanna Groves. I am the host, also known as Lip Reading Mom. Today's guest is Jonathan Ozek, and he is a deaf and hard of hearing advocate, speaker, and founder of an organization called Hear You Rise. It is a nonprofit born from his own journey of navigating silence, misunderstanding, and the fight to be heard. Growing up, Jonathan faced many communication barriers that shaped his life, including classrooms where he felt invisible and workplaces where access was an afterthought. And there were moments he had to choose between staying quiet or standing up for himself. Those experiences didn't break him, they built the leader that Jonathan is today. So, through Here You Rise, Jonathan has turned his lived experiences into purpose by creating spaces where deaf and hard of hearing individuals feel seen, supported, and empowered. He also serves on the statewide advisory council for the Massachusetts Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. In addition to that, he supports community engagement for the Hearing Loss Association of America, Boston, Massachusetts chapter. And he uses his voice to push for accessibility, equity, and human connection. Welcome, Jonathan.
Wow, thank you very much for having me. And what an amazing introduction. That was a long one.
I like the more information, the better, because everyone can just get that soundbite at the beginning of the podcast and determine, oh, so this is what this will be about. But
Absolutely.
seriously, the Definitely Talking podcast is to spotlight those of us who consider ourselves either hard of hearing or deaf. And you being an example of that, as well as myself, I wanted to start off with a question for you. And
Of course.
this concerns your background experiences with having hearing loss. Can you explain more about the history of when your hearing loss was diagnosed and what kind of hearing loss you have? And also, if you use technology or other communication accessibility with your hearing.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and this is a great. It was I'll finally meet you in Zoom finally. So yeah, everybody. My name's Jonathan Ozek, and I was born with a nerve-related hearing loss, and nobody caught it until I was like about 3 years old. And for years, people thought I was a quiet, shy, or should I just say, in my own world. But really, uh, I just couldn't hear the world at all. So when the doctors found my diagnosis, they came to my family and told them that I will not be able to speak. So that was the first time I learned what it feels like to be underestimated. And the first time I provided someone, I mean, well, not provided that, I proved someone wrong. So from that moment on, hearing aids just became part of my life. I've used everything. In 1980s, the old school hearing aids. We had the FM system where you strapped around your chest with a big box on your chest and connect your hearing aid to school. The early digital ones. And now the advanced technology, which I have, is a phone X, which a game changer. And so that helped me navigate conversations in environments. They help, but they don't erase the experience. They're tools, not magic. So my healing journey has been exactly that a journey is shape of how I communicate, how I advocate, how I show up in the world. It's a reason that I built Hear Your Rise, as you mentioned it. It's a reason why I fight for accessibility, and it's a reason that I believe that lived experience is powerful.
Yeah. And those of you who are tuning in to YouTube, we have on Jonathan's video background is the logo for the Hear You Rise Foundation. And Jonathan, I have visited your website and found so many great resources on some speaking engagements that you do. You also do some fundraising for the hearing loss community, including helping in schools and with hearing aid access. Tell me how this foundation got started.
It was just a lot of time and thinking, and just kind of like one of those things where you do like a name calling, kind of like what you're doing with a broadcast. Just kind of like always about collaboration, network, and connection. So, I founded Here You Rise Foundation in 2023, but the truth is that the mission started long before the paperwork. Um, and it was just one of those moments in my eyes were open in my previous job that where I requested a symbol combination. That's something that should have been basic, respectful, and pretty much legally protected. Instead, I was pushed I was pushed aside. I was being unheard, treated like my needs were inconvenience, and that experience changed me. That's why the Hear Your Rise Foundation showed up. And from that moment on, it showed me how many people in our community we face the same barriers, the same silence, the same lack of support. So I knew that I just couldn't stay quiet. So I started educating, advocating, and speaking up, not just for myself, but to everyone who's been told, just deal with it. No, we can't do it. That fire is what eventually became Hear Your Rise. And there's so many things that I want to do with this foundation is in a way to give back to the community. The purpose is so powerful, personal, to make communication accessible, to create inclusive spaces, and to make sure that no deaf and hard of hearing individual ever feel alone, dismissed, pretty much of what I felt during that time. And the way that we focus on is just expanding communication access in school, workplaces, sports, and community spaces. Speaking of sports, just last week I collaborate with the Winchester Red Sox, which is the a double no, it's a triple A Boston Red Sox minor league team.
Oh,
And then a couple of days later, I went to the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. And yeah, and yeah. Are you the Red Sox fan or are you the Kansas City Royals?
well, I have to support my home team. Being from Kansas City, I support the Royals, but I know the Boston Red Sox, boy, they have such a legendary history. And
They
then
do.
of one of my adult children is a huge St. Louis Cardinals baseball fan. And so we have a little bit of a rivalry when both of those teams play. But the Red Sox are so much fun. And oh my gosh, Fenway
Have
Park
you been there?
is just baseball is something that's really important in my home. And so that's really exciting that you've done some advocacy work for some of these events at the ballpark. And you mentioned in in explaining the background about the workplace environment that you came from and how you had tried to advocate for accessibility. And of course, here in the United States, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, that's supposed to protect our rights as people with disabilities to be able to have certain rights and things that we can request. But you and I both know the reality. We both, it sounds like, have had experiences in the workplace to where our needs were unmet, and not because we didn't ask repeatedly. And so I'm curious, in your advocacy work, how have you worked to build connections with people like us who have come from workplace situations to where communication was not accessible? And how have you worked to build bridges and awareness for workplaces to better understand how to accommodate, as well as encouraging people with hearing loss and how to advocate for themselves in the workplace?
That's a great question. That was my main point right there. What I've been working on since 2022 or 23 is the workplace. So basically, you just said it, communication access. The problem is that most companies just look at one way to communicate, while there are millions of ways to communicate. So I educate in workplaces. I go to colleges and universities to students that are studying, let's say, human resources, and I'm on, or they're ever going to be, they want to be a manager at some company or something like that. And basically, they need to be educated about American with Disability Act, ADA, because I feel like most colleges and universities are not educated on that very important situation and able to learn hands-on scenario where I come and I educate, okay, here's scenario A, if the person requests that, how are you going to respond to that? Because obviously, uh, putting on unpaid medical leave or absence or cutting their hours it's not the right way to go. So it's all about communication and collaboration. And one of the things that I focus on is able to find a solution. What will benefit for both the employer and the employee? So if you can't honor it, okay, let's find a solution instead of going unheard, unsupported, and they just pretty much we left you hanging. So that's what I do with the Hear Your Rise Foundation. I educate on human resources, workplaces, college students, and just kind of like just to spread their awareness and don't make the same mistake what my previous employer did.
Mhm.
So yes.
Oh, I'm just shaking my head because
Yeah.
I can relate. I had an experience that I won't go into too much detail on this podcast, but let's just say I did not continue with that job and I actually left that profession to seek out something that would provide more communication access. So it's vital that employers and employees know what the rights are for those of us who can't hear or can't hear well, that our needs are unique too, because, you know, I identify as a person who is medically deaf and I wear a cochlear implant and a hearing aid. So
Okay.
someone might assume that I need a sign language interpreter in my workplace. And I'm not fluent in sign language. And so for me, as a person with hearing loss, need to be able to advocate for exactly what I need. And that usually includes things in writing, and making sure that face-to-face communication has the ideal listening environment and that people
Yes.
get my attention before they speak, all of those things. So you have also done some advocacy work with the Massachusetts Commission for the Deaf, Hard of Hearing, as well as the
Yeah.
Boston HLAA chapter. And can you tell me some highlights from your work with both of those organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in 2022, um, I did collaborate with HLA Boston back in 2018. So I gave back to the community and I attended Walk for Hearing. But at the time, I had other commitments and I was working in family business at the time, so I couldn't be involved with the HLAA. So fast forward today, since 2022, I've been serving as a social media director and a community engagement for the Boston chapter, and it's been very worthwhile, rewarding because gives it's a volunteer opportunity, but it really gives you a platform to educate yourself the way that I couldn't do on my previous job was to like able to kind of like give you um a little bit of freedom, let's just say, and just always to educate myself, so, I didn't have any experience of community engagement, and I just continue to learn about community, networking, connection, and just last year, um, during the New Year's, I spoke to the president of the Boston chapter, and I said to her, I learned a lot from the Walk for Hearing. Give me the role, and I'm gonna plan on it. And I just took all that paperwork and I just educated myself by reaching out to the companies, our networking, and from that point on, this past year was probably I'm I'm proud to say that next week I'm going to Kentucky to receive the award from the HLAA National because of that walk.
Oh, that is wonderful. And for those of you tuning in who are not familiar with the HLAA Walk for Hearing, it is an advocacy and a fundraising event that is held annually in cities all across the United States to raise awareness and funding for the Hearing Loss Association of America. So that is exciting.
Eh,
Congratulations on being
Thank
honored
you.
this summer.
Thank you, and and I had a great team behind me. Of course, you met Brad or Julie; they were remarkable. And then we have the president, Carrie Silverman, and then we have Sue, who is the vice president of the chapter. So it was all teamwork, and because of that teamwork is the reason why we are receiving the that award. And I wanted to add about being a statewide advisory council for the Massachusetts Commission for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. So it's been great to serve. It's something that I've been wanting to do. And when I mentioned it about the Worcester Red Sox, the commissioner saw my work with the Worcester Red Sox and wanted to reach out to me if I wanted to join to his department. And I was like, you didn't have to ask me anything. I definitely would love to serve. So I've been serving since February 2025, and we've just been doing a lot of work. Just 2 months ago, we just celebrated 40th anniversary for the Massachusetts Commission for Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Because the 40 years ago is when it started it, and we just celebrated it. We invited all the deaf and hard of hearing community, and it was a great experience. It's kind of like one of those things where you go to these center of events, and they kind of like become your second family because their background and our challenges and the barriers. And I'm sure that goes with you because you also serve as well for the Kansas City.
Yes, for the state of Kansas, Commission for the Deaf, Hard of Hearing. But yes, I live in Kansas City, so and Kansas City has two states, Kansas and Missouri side. We have a state line that actually runs through our town, our city. But no, it's so great that you've had all of these different initiatives that you have been able to serve, and uh, I commend you for just accepting those opportunities and being enthusiastic about them. We need more people like you. Um, but we have just a few more minutes, and I wanted to end our
Ooh.
podcast interview with what I call a big three question. So this season, I'm definitely talking in honor of my three precious children. And if you're watching the video, there's a black and white photo of two boys and a little girl, and those are my three children many, many years ago. They are all grown. And I love the number three. So, my question for you, Jonathan, is what three lessons have you learned with your hearing loss?
Oh boy. So yes, absolutely. I totally understand about those three questions. So basically, well, first of all, does your kids treat you well, or do they make fun of your hearing aid?
They advocate for me, and
That's awesome. That's
I
awesome.
that's all they've ever known because my oldest son, my oldest child, was 2 months old when I was diagnosed with progressive hearing loss. And
Oh
so
wow.
all they've ever known is a mom who can't hear well. that's that's normal to them, and it's normal for them to have to repeat things to me or get my attention, or when we're in public sometimes they have to be my hearing helper when people are asking me
Absolutely.
questions and I don't understand what they're asking me. And so I think it developed some great empathy, and I love recognizing my three children because of that.
Oh, I love that. I love that. It's family. That's family to you.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's definitely, and I can imagine the challenge, but hey, it works out the best. So yeah, for your question for my three lessons from the Devon Hard Hearing experience. So basically, I have something called "What is your favorite car?" So CAR. So car. What I mean by that, communication, accessibility, and resilience. So with the communication, okay, it's you know communication is more than a sound. Um, Growing deaf taught me early that communication isn't automatic. It's a choice that people make. And I learned to read people, I'm sure that goes with you as well, that we read the people's body language, energy, effort, long before we could rely on words. So that's how I shape up today because I listen with my eyes and my attention. It made me value with clarity, honesty, and connection in a way that I don't take for granted.
Mm.
So, and accessibility isn't a favor; it's more a form of request. So, with my lived experience, showed how often the world is built with us in mind. So instead of shrinking, it pushed me into the apathy. I learned that accessibility isn't just a special treatment, it's about equal opportunity. When you create access, you create dignity. The lesson of the foundation of Here You Rise and everything I stand for. So it's pretty much what you do in your household, basically.
Mhm.
And the last one, resilient, it grows in spaces where you underestimate. So being deaf means consciously navigating environments that weren't designed for us. Like classrooms, workplaces, conversation systems. Um, we both learn to adapt. We learn how to advocate. We learn how to speak up and just keep going. Even when people doubt it, what I could do, the resilient became my superpower. It taught me that my difference isn't a limitation, it's the lens that helped me to see the world more clearly.
Right.
So, everywhere you go, even in your household, I'm sure you educate your kids as your mom is hard of hearing. If you want to talk to me, speak louder or tap on the table to get my attention and
Yeah.
so forth.
Knock, 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 knock.
Yes.
Flash the lights.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
And
yes.
another thing I want to add though, is that earlier when we talked about communication in the workplace, one of the things that I want the viewers to know is that there are millions of ways to communicate. So, we even should be having this conversation because we're in 2026. There's so many technologies now. We got iPhones, we got classes that have closed captions, and there's a lot of I even educate about Microsoft PowerPoint presentation where there's a closed captions or even a Google Chat and so forth and everything. So again, um, communication and accessibility should be a number one priority for all workplaces.
That's awesome. The CAR, communication, accessibility, resilience. I love that. And Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing all of this great wisdom and insight that you have developed through your lived experience with hearing loss and just being an all around great person to get out there in your community, put yourself out there, and do what needs to be done to make things more accessible for those of us who can't hear. So, thank you for being with me today.
Oh my God! Now, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I was very excited. I know that we set up a meeting, and I was like, "That's a long way to wait," but we finally arrived.
Thank you. All
Of
right. Well,
course.
thanks, Jonathan.
Uh,
Thank you. And for everyone that's tuning in with us today, we can wish you well. Thank you for your support. Whether
Thank
you
you.
have hearing loss or not, we just appreciate your engagement. And yeah, I will put some information after this video about Hear You Rise Foundation so that you can check it out on the web. All right, everyone. Thank you so much and have
Thank
a
you,
great
guys. Thank you, everyone. Have
Yes.
a good night.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.